So the 2015 deadline was pretty wild. There were 11 total trades and 37 players moved, all on February 19th. And Woj had to tweet "Good Lord," and I think that tweet's got like 9,000 likes. If it happened today, it would have way more than that. And I figure, why not just go down the moves? Now, as a Celtics fan, the first one I have to mention is the Isiah Thomas trade that got him to Boston. It was for Marcus Thornton and a Cavaliers pick, which I believe became Skal Labissiere. So, for whatever that's worth. I remember looking back on this, and I remember this one kind of coming like at the last minute. It was like it wasn't rumored at all, and as it was impossible to see what was really going on, it just kind of squeaked in there like the Celtics have acquired Sacramento Kings guard Isiah Thomas, and I was like, wait a minute, what? Did my team just get a guy who can actually score even 17 points a game? Because back at that time, that Celtics team they had like nothing in terms of offensive talent. And then Isiah got ejected in the first game against the Lakers. I do remember this, but it's wild to think that that's all it was. It was Marcus Thornton and basically Skal Labissiere for one of the best offensive seasons in the history of the Celtics. Another significant trade was Miami getting Goran Dragic, and the stuff that was moved. The big thing was the 2 picks going to Phoenix. So this was the thing with the Suns, right? It's like they had to get off of Isiah and Dragic because they had their failed 3 point guard thing, and they got 3 draft picks in return for those 2 guys. So you could see the vision for Phoenix. And I remember for Miami, this was a big deal because they were already kind of good. I believe this was when Whiteside came out of nowhere, and I feel like there was just this belief that after they made this move that Miami could be something between Dragic, Bosh, Wade, Whiteside, but between Bosh dealing with the blood clot stuff and whatever else, it just never totally took off. I mean, they were better the next season, but like this in 2015, Miami finished with 37 wins, and they were below 500 when they made this Dragic trade. And then after that, they win 48 games, and they were okay. They were good. They were a good team. Lost in round 2 to Toronto in a game 7. I believe one of these picks was the 2021 Miami first, and that pick has now become involved in the massive Miami, OKC, Houston, Paul George, Kawhi trade whirlwind. So I don't know where the hell that trade or that pick ends up at. As far as the 2017 first that went to Phoenix, I'll be honest, it's a little tough to see where that pick ended up because Phoenix did so much at this deadline that it was like they would trade for something and then immediately trade it away for something else. Like, if you go look at it all, like the amount of moves that they were involved in was pretty nuts because they were also involved in a 3-team deal with the Bucks and the Sixers, and Michael Carter-Williams was moving, and a 2018 pick was moved there, and that became Mikal Bridges, but he's on the Suns anyway. Like, it's very confusing on where the other Dragic first-round pick ended up. We also had a move that at the time was a bigger deal. When you look at it now, it's just kind of whatever, but it was a 3-team trade where the Pistons got Reggie Jackson, and that was a big deal for them at the time, where they thought that they were getting their point guard to pair up with Drummond, and then they could be something, and didn't end up really working out like that. Enes Kanter also ended up in OKC, and that was significant because they got Kanter out of Utah. So then it became the Derek Favors Gobert show pretty much from that moment. There were a couple of picks that moved around because that was a 3-team deal. The picks selected, like Thomas Bryant, ended up being a 2017 second rounder. Josh Okogie was selected in a 2018 first that was moved around in this trade. And as far as how he ended up in Minnesota, I don't totally know because they're not involved in this move at all. But yeah, it's one of those where, like, I bet at the time, if you look back on it, there was a lot of discussion about that trade, and now we would look back on Reggie Jackson's time with the Pistons as not that great. Now, if you want to defend him, you could look at injuries, and the roster itself was never that awesome, but I don't think any of us are really going to bat for Reggie Jackson like that, are we? As for Kanter, I mean, didn't Kanter matter a lot to OKC, at least in one playoff series? and he did lead to the Carmelo Anthony trade, so in a way this move kind of started a bunch of things for OKC. Now there were some smaller moves. The Celtics traded Tayshaun Prince back to Detroit. The Rockets received Pablo Prigioni for Alexei Shved and 2 second-round picks to the Knicks. Remember Alexei Shved? I feel like he had a moment in the NBA that wasn't horrible, even if he's not doing anything now. The Knicks got 2 second-rounders. That's always nice. The picks ended up not being much. It was a guy whose name I cannot pronounce, as well as Kyle Guy, who has played NBA minutes, has he? No, he hasn't. He's played 2 minutes for the Sacramento Kings. So, there's that one for you. The Houston Rockets received KJ McDaniels, and Philadelphia acquired a second-round pick and Isaiah Cannon. That second-rounder became Rashawn Holmes. KJ McDaniels was interesting. Of course, he was a kind of a big deal in my Nuggets My GM from a million years ago. KJ had like a moment where it seemed like he was going to be something, and this athletic guy who could defend a lot of positions and do all that, but we learned basically from right when he showed up in Houston that just because you're athletic and you play hard doesn't mean you actually know how to play basketball at the NBA level. And that's pretty much what happened with McDaniels. Even that, it is wild to think that he didn't have at least like a Tony Allen type of career, but I don't know, man. It just didn't happen. Wrong place, wrong time, or whatever, but he's been out of the league since 2017. This is the epitome of a process move. The Sixers got a 2015 first, top 18 protected from OKC, which, if I'm not mistaken, those stipulations sound like the Nerlens Noel trade. So maybe there's a connection there. And they traded the draft rights to a guy who has never played in the NBA, to the Nuggets. And they also got JaVale McGee. They waived McGee immediately, and then they used that 2015 first-round pick, or 2016, according to Basketball Reference, my bad, to select Furkan Korkmaz. There you go. That's a process trade right there. Sam Hinkie making a move for a guy he's never going to use, and he ends up selecting a guy who now plays 22 minutes a game for the Sixers and was, at times, kind of really important for them this season as a shooter. So there you go. Sam Hinkie doing Sam Hinkie things. We had Thad Young for Kevin Garnett because the Wolves just wanted KG and they just wanted off of Thad Young, I guess. So the Nets getting themselves an actual basketball player for Kevin Garnett in 2015 was a hell of a move because KG was all the way washed. We had an Andre Miller for Ramon Sessions trade. Miller went to the Kings and Ramon Sessions went to the Wizards. Andre Miller, one of those players who I feel like is going to live on in NBA nerd folklore forever. Guy averaged 7 assists a game for his career on a million different teams. I think he's like 9th all-time in assists or something wild like that. It's kind of weird. He just never found a long-term spot. As for Ramon Sessions, I mean, the only real notable thing of Ramon Sessions' career is that everybody thought he was going to save the Lakers for some year when they traded for him, and he just turned out to be just a regular guy because that's what he was. He was a regular guy. We also have the Arron Afflalo trade to the Blazers, and this was a big deal at the time because Portland was really good. I mean, at one point in this 2015 season, they were like 30-8. Dame was in year 3, I believe. I mean, Dame was really good his rookie season. This was kind of like peak LaMarcus Aldridge, averaging 23 a game. And you know, it was the starting lineup that just made sense. It was Dame, Wesley Matthews, Nicholas Batum, LaMarcus Aldridge, Robin Lopez. The fit was perfect. The team was rolling. They made the Afflalo trade. He's their 6th man, and we're all thinking, oh, this could be a real threat in the playoffs. And then Wesley Matthews hurt his Achilles, and that was basically it. I mean, they lost in, was it round 1? Yeah, they lost in 5 games to Memphis, which looking back on now, I think it's a little weird that they lost in 5 games. It seemed like they still could have been able to win some stuff, but the Memphis team was pretty good. And, yeah, as far as the rest of that move, Denver was involved. The Nuggets received Will Barton, Thomas Robinson, a Blazers pick, which became Malik Beasley, actually. Interesting, underrated trade. 3 players who have ended up being pretty decent. Arron Afflalo, Malik Beasley, and Will Barton all moved. It's cool to look at these things when you go back to it, man. Like a move that at the time we mainly just paid attention to for Afflalo and ended up being kind of impactful for other people. Thomas Robinson never made it work in the NBA. Just a few years too early for him. Or too late, I should say. I also don't know if he was ever really that good. Like, I don't know. Like, if Thomas Robinson gets drafted in 2004, is he actually that good of an NBA player? I don't know. I think we went through all of them. Yeah. 11 trades, 37 players moved, and 1 very entertaining tweet from Woj. So, yeah.